What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Betters Tribune, brought to you by Line Sniper. I'm here. My name is James Mazzola. Join here. Let's start all over. That was fucking awful.
It's like old times.
All right, ready?
What is Varner doing here?
Okay. 3, 2. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Betters Tribune, brought to you by Line Sniper. I am your host, James Mazzola, and I have another co-host running shotgun with me today. One of my good buddies from the Twitter world, Andy Molitor. How are you doing this morning, my man?
Pretty good. I didn't know I was co-host, sidekick today.
I don't know. I've seen a lot of faces in there. None of them is attractive.
Always
as you.
happy to talk to you.
Yeah, I love it, man. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk a little bit of the Friday lines, and we're going to give a sneak peek, onto what we're looking at this weekend. I think with the NFL coming back, that's the only place to start, and that's nice because that is Andy's expertise. First and foremost, we have to talk about just a little bit of last night. We kind of saw the continuation of last season with Kansas City absolutely trouncing the Texans. What kind of takeaways are you grabbing from that game, and moving forward? Can anyone really stop this Chiefs offense?
Yeah, if you look at some of the metrics from last night, even the PFF grades for the quarterbacks, they rated. Pro Football Focus rated Deshaun Watson as the better quarterback in that game,
wow,
which kind of speaks volumes to that team. You can have a game where Mahomes didn't even play all that well, really didn't complete a deep ball, and they scored 34 points. Probably could have scored more. They took their foot off the gas late. So if he's not even playing up to snuff and they still trounce a team like that, kind of worried I guess not worried. I have some futures, but it feels like it's a back-to-back. It might be in the mix. It's been about 15 years, but they look pretty good. And as far as Houston, defense looked tough. The defense looks a little tough, except for maybe up front. The goal line stands are nice. Hard to take much else away from there.
The rookie DBs held up better than expected. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, oh my God. Talk a new weapon. That guy was absolutely amazing, getting the bulk of the carries, even down the goal line. I was super surprised at that. But I mean, with that guy, and there came a point in the second quarter where they just handed it off to him every single time. He's gashing them for 5 to 10 every carry. And Watson, losing Hopkins, has Fuller. I didn't see a better game from Watkins than I did from Mahomes. But Pro Football Focus, they know their shit. But ultimately, you're going to look at that game and you're going to come. It's hard not to come over with the Chiefs being the favorites, and which is what they are, deservedly so.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the weekend. We have Sunday, Week 1 in the NFL. We have a full slate of games in the morning, and of course, they give us the poo-poo platter, so to speak, in the afternoon, with only I believe 3 games in the afternoon. I hate that. I wish they would split it up.
Yeah, we just have a 3-game slate there.
Yeah. And so when we're looking at this weekend, what and being an NFL bettor, what kind of things are you looking for just in general, not necessarily game by game, but what are you looking for in general to kind of to take away from these regular week one games?
It's funny because we're going to talk about this weekend's games. My bets have been in for a long time. There's other people who have bets in for months on end. Like, I'm on to week 2. That's where I'm looking. That's what I'm looking. Literally, that is what I'm looking
Makes
at.
Sense.
The way I handicap, the way I do NFL, I'm looking to learn things. Like, I'm not going to make any more bets on it would take something unique for me to make any more bets in the NFL here on Friday afternoon when we're recording this. And truthfully, I'm on to week 2. Any game I didn't bet either meant the line was right where I put it. I didn't see an edge either way, or there's enough uncertainty in, positional groups, new players, new coaches, new schemes, something like that. So I have a long list of things I've written down. Basically, it's a questionnaire I need to try to fill out this Sunday. And every team,
I love that.
Some teams have more questions than others. Some teams have a lot of questions. I need to answer those so I can update my power rankings and get ready to move on through the season here.
That's awesome. So getting down specifically to the games, I know a lot of these numbers have moved. Are there any games where your numbers are still available?
Yeah, I still like the Rams at where they're at. Like if I add that's the only game I'm waiting for a few pieces of news out of that one. I still don't mind that at all at +3. It's a juicy +3. Honestly, if I'm looking to play that one yet, that's a money line play for me at home. I still make that closer to a pick. Even
Okay.
it sounds like a big edge, but in a total that high, it's not as big of an edge for me. So that's about the only one that hasn't moved far off my numbers. That probably still has a little bit of an edge for me.
You know, last year we saw home field advantage, the start to diminish a little bit. What are you doing with home field advantage, considering the either lack of fans or no fans at all? How are you factoring that in? Is it more just pure travel? What are your thoughts on the home field advantage this year?
Yeah, you still have the travel. Like travel's the big
Yeah,
part of it. You lose time. You only have so many days to prep between games. When you travel, you lose prep time, you lose meeting time, you lose practice time. That's what affects these teams. And of course, jet lag or whatever if you're traveling from coast to coast. But at the same time, a big part of home field is also the ref bias, and the ref bias part
yeah.
of it is the fans. That's what basically it's what the studies say. People smarter than me, so I'm leaving home field as it is for now, which is to say lower than it's been traditionally. At the end of last
Yeah,
year, it was lower. We're talking point and a half, 2 points, kind of on average. I'm going
that's
to
what.
leave it
Yeah,
alone. I don't want to make some wild adjustment, but think about how many flags you saw last night.
that's right.
There weren't.
Yeah, no, I agree
I
with
mean,
you.
I,
That's
I,
interesting.
I don't have an exact number, but that's one of the big things I've kind of been pondering right now. Like, what was the lack of fans part of that? I'm going to talk to some people and get some opinions on that today. But was it just a really clean game, or was the ref bias, totally washed out, and they just weren't calling anything?
I mean, there was a blatant false start. Like it wasn't even
Yeah,
remotely
it
close
was.
false start. That it's
Yeah,
like,
is
what
there
the
an
hell
issue
just
with
happened?
and that's the other side of the coin? Like the refs not getting to ref any preseason games. Are
Yeah,
they super rusty, and are they going to miss a bunch of stuff? I don't know if that's an actionable angle you can use to handicap with, but
yeah.
it was really odd seeing that few calls.
Yeah, and honestly, it was nice because no one likes to see a game full of
No,
laundry
no,
littering all over the field. So I liked it personally. Even if you have to miss a few calls, err on the side of of less penalties. One
let the
number
boys
that I
play.
still see, and I made this case on air last night. Raiders are still sitting at -3. I know you have a Raiders bet at -3, correct?
I have a 1.5. But
Oh shit! Well, never mind. I bet a
yeah,
minus
well,
three
I
anyways.
admit I released it at -3 because I was on vacation when I bet it. By the time I
Okay,
didn't want to be that guy, but like, hey, I bet one and a
gotcha.
half a week ago. Suckers. But no, I mean, but I agree with you. It's still, I played it at a sold out 3, so it was like 3 plus 106. It
Okay.
was 2.5 when I actually released it. I still think that's, maybe I was mistaken there, but just saying only the Rams, I'd probably still play Vegas at 3. Carolina's rough.
It's going to be a tough season, I think, for the Panthers. Where you have a single total you're looking at that might still be actionable?
There's a bit of a weird push pull here on the Tampa total. And I don't know, maybe if you have
Okay.
an opinion on that, but it felt like maybe some of it had to do with the Mike Evans injury, although I don't like
Okay.
to see a total drop like that just for one receiver. It did
That's
drop a
interesting.
little to the point where some people I know have played the over. I almost think
Okay.
that's come down far enough where, I mean, I make it like 49. So it was 49
Oh
and a
wow.
half. It
Okay.
got bet down, bet down. Now it's like 47 and a half at a lot of places. I honestly think you could play an over there. I'm not super sold on the Tampa Bay defense being markedly improved, and just the amount of, just start naming receivers. If Evans plays, I mean, how many possible Hall of Fame receivers do you have on both sides of the ball there? Between Thomas and Evans and Godwin and Gronk, and you got Manny Sanders, you got some good receiving backs and two savvy quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It feels like getting to 7 touchdowns isn't going to be, super, some feat. I think
Yeah.
I
Even
trust my
without
numbers
Evans, I don't.
there. And
Even
I'm
without.
considering coming back on that one a little.
Yeah. Even without Evans, I mean, there's plenty of weapons there. They want to go to two tight end sets
Yeah,
predominantly. They have plenty of options.
yeah. I didn't
Well,
even name half the tight ends.
yeah, and then obviously a Fournette, with Ronald Jones back in the backfield, I don't see that as a big deal. And there, I can't remember his name is fleeting right now, but they have another wide receiver who got
Tom
some
Brady.
run what's that?
I was just joking. I said
Oh,
Tom Brady.
yeah, they have another wide receiver who got a lot of run at the end of last year when Evans did go down with Godwin. I know Perriman's gone, but yeah, I mean, and of course, the Saints offense is going to hum. I mean, you have Breeze at the helm. I'm worried about Breeze a little bit. I know you guys talk about this on your podcast a lot. Just We've seen a lack of arm strength. When is that going to catch up to him? But I guess we need to see it before we believe that. But even then, with that run attack, Kamara in the backfield, and one of the best schemers in football, I don't think the Saints will have a problem moving the ball. I think 47.5, 49 was a little much, but 47.5, I think that's almost bettable. Wonder if it goes down another tick to a flat 47. That would be an absolute take.
Yeah.
Cool.
No,
Okay.
I'd be all over that.
There's going to be some storylines that come out week one. We'll have to see, what happens. Right now, I don't see anyone on the Chiefs level. That was some impressive shit last night. Why don't we transition over to college football? Now, I'm a Pac-12 guy. That is what I handicap. Unfortunately, we've decided not to play football out here on the West Coast this fall, but we do have some games. What if anything? I know you're not necessarily a college football handicapper. You're kind of like me. We try and pick off smarter people than we are, but we have a couple games. Yes. Have you seen anything from guys you're talking to who have any angles? And what are people doing with this, considering the amount of guys who can just go out at any given second due to COVID on these campuses?
Yeah, and this again, football on both levels, college and pro, especially early in the season. If you're going to go out and lay serious money on Saturday or Sunday morning, you're going to have a bad time unless you're the buyback if you think you're smarter than the smart people, because all these numbers have moved greatly. The ones that you want have moved. Like, you go look at what Army opened at. I don't know if have you have an odds screen up right now? Army over Louisiana Monroe.
22 right now.
Yeah, there were, you go pull up what Pinnacle was for the opener. It was maybe 17. There was places that opened under 17. So yeah, Pinnacle opened that at 17. It jumped up over 2 touchdowns. Heavy money on Army. It's not, Army had a good week. They played well, but at the same time, it's half of this is just the Louisiana Monroe fade. They're going to be a very bad team this year, and that goes for a few of these games. It's tough when you start dealing with, like Texas minus 43. Yeah, UTEP is super, super bad, but there is a certain point in the game where it's like, are they just going to keep scoring, or are they going to put some other kids in and let them play? Is there going to be garbage touchdowns covering? You see these big numbers get covered all the time, but some of these games are just complete. Like, are you really going to get involved in Clemson minus 34, Texas minus 43? It's wild to look at this slate and scroll down and see it be, similar in size to an NFL slate. Usually a college slate is, massive.
All day of fun.
You just scroll and scroll and scroll, and that's where I wonder if there's going to be a little, you can say just based on volume, there's fewer games. So maybe there won't be quite as much value, but we'll watch that. And I think that's something you can do to maybe sharpen up your handicapping here, is watch the biggest moves and try to figure out why. And you can adjust your numbers off that, because there's going to be heavy ones early in the season as the books put out just whatever they can and let the groups come in and hammer, like, Army. And again, I will say that is a Monroe fade. They're also going to be missing some players. I think I have a little in that. Like you said, we talked to people who actually bet college or football quite a bit, and I just kind of follow some of their stuff as we go. It was the one year that I'd said, like, this is the year I'm going to get into college football, and then they start talking about canceling seasons. I'm like, well, I'm not going to waste any time, putting numbers together for this. Now I'm into it. I wish I had.
Yeah, and that's usually my Sundays are spent watching, obviously, NFL and scrolling and waiting for lines to drop on my Pac-12 games, because I have good power ratings there, and that's what I handicap. So you're totally right. At this point, probably not a lot of value. One thing I am looking at that's interesting, Kansas is absolutely terrible. Let's just say what it is, and they've been terrible for a very long time. They get a Coastal Carolina team that they lost to last year. I'm curious, and this is just pure narrative based. They're a 6.5-point favorite. And Coastal Carolina is by no means any kind of a powerhouse. They lost a lot of players off last year's team. They returned a lot of players from last year's team. Kansas lost a lot of players from last year's team. But at the same time, there comes a point where you have to have a little pride in your program. So that's a 6.5. I'm looking at just a pure narrative. I have absolutely no numbers to back that up. Just an interesting line that I'm seeing out there. Have you heard anything on that game at all?
No, I kind of want to check into that, because it looks like it has been, steamed Kansas way. There was some places that opened that down 3.5. So Kansas money came in, but at this point, now that you're up over a touchdown, there's places that are at 7 minus 13 at Chris, 7 minus 120 at some rec shops. So maybe coming back now that it's up over a touchdown. And that's the other thing, too. You'll see some of these games, especially games like that, or maybe this whole year where there's smaller teams, smaller programs that aren't taking a lot of money. You'll see fake outs on these where it gets hammered one way just for somebody to come back heavy the other way. Although, we're already here at Friday. If the moves were going to come, they'd have come by now.
Yeah,
so I don't know. I would watch that line. See if there's some buyback on Coastal Carolina here going into Saturday.
that's not a side I would like. That's for sure. All right, moving on. That's a good overview of what we have on tap this weekend for football. We have a little baseball today, and again, I don't see a whole lot from this baseball board that I like, but there's a couple plays here. I'm looking at, and I don't. What's your baseball handicapping? Do you do anything? Do you dabble in the hardball?
Yeah, I mean, I just talk to enough people all day long where you're bound to absorb some of it, and I know a lot of it is just starting pitcher based, especially this year because they're so. Sure. It seems like there's some of these feast and famine games, or a lot of newer guys, a lot of bullpen games, cobbled together games where you can find some nice actionable angles. There's some good pitchers going today though. Nola, DeGrom, where we got Cobb and Cole. I don't know if I should throw Cobb in there at all, but Jack Cole,
lowest total on the board. We have a 6.5, which you don't see a whole lot on the MLB slate. 6.5. We have Bieber for Indians going against Kenta Maeda, a new twin. Your twinsies. Twins have a really good lineup to throw a 6.5 out there, but Bieber is an absolute stud. To me, that's just with the Twins lineup and a 6.5. I'm super skeptical. The Indians have been an absolute. We talked about the Indians yesterday. A terrible hitting team, got shut out by the Royals and a guy who is basically a double A level pitcher yesterday. So, a bounce back there. It's tough to envision that, but anytime you see 6.5s, normally that's an auto under. Actually, if you just look at the every 6.5 that's ever been dropped, the under has value there. But I can't. Yeah. Your Twins. I know you're a big, huge, giant. You always bring up the 91 World Series with my Atlanta Braves, which usually I get a little mad about. But that would be one I'm looking at it over there just based on that Twins offense. Maybe a Twins team total over. Again, it's hard to oppose Bieber, but at the same time, that's just too low. But other than that, I don't see a whole lot on this board. And, baseball is interesting with these doubleheaders. I still haven't figured out an actual angle. So I just take away the Tanaka, the Yankees and Orioles. We have Cole and Tanaka going today. Cole, who has been very disappointing, they land at 220 or 233, and Cole's been getting hit around. Now, can he get hit around by the Orioles? That's a whole other story. But these doubleheader games are really tough to cap for me. Do you have anything else to add to the?
Yeah, I was going to say that one's a 6.5 total too, but it's 2 innings shorter.
Yeah, it's like what are you supposed to do? I mean, Cole could just pitch the whole damn game.
I mean, Maeda's ERA is down somewhere, 2.5, 2.75, somewhere in there as well. I mean, they're both. It's probably the two best pitchers. Likely two of the best pitchers in the division. Maybe I could put Giolito in there if he gets a couple nice ones. But I mean, Bieber's been lights out. It'll be interesting to see what the Twins lineup looks like. I don't know what kind of lineup you put up against the righty. I don't think that's out. It's a later game. That one's not till 7 tonight. So I think we'll see lineups here this afternoon. But I will kind of keep an eye, see how that total moves. Yeah, I don't have a ton on the baseball.
It is super important to wait. When during COVID, you have to wait for lineups. Like it's almost impossible to make too many of these bets without them because it's just the condensed schedule, and you just never know what's going to happen. So I always will wait for lineups before I place anything, unless it's an under total. Then I'll go ahead and throw it out there. But generally, any money line or overplay, I'm going to wait for lineups to hit. Just because, the under could get steamed under just based on lineup. So I'll take that as soon as I can find it. That's usually the baseball strategy. Let's flip over to the NBA. All right. We're in the midst of what has been an absolutely epic playoffs. I've had so much fun with the NBA this year. I know you've bet probably more NBA than you have in a while, right? Just because of, it was the only thing in town for a bit. So first and foremost, how have you liked the bubble? And secondly, we got game 7 tonight, baby. We got Celtics Raps. Any opinion on that?
I did have a lot of fun in the bubble. I bet some of those regular season win totals, which is to say of the 8 game schedule. They put those out for all the teams, where you could, I think my biggest edge, and a bunch of people agreed, which makes me feel so smart because I'm not like a super sharp NBA handicapper. And when I see something and the guys who are agree with it, I'm like, oh man, we're hammering this. And I think it was 6.5 was the total that they opened for the Bucks. And they went like 2-6.
Wild.
That was the easiest bet I've won all fall. So that was, and it got bet down quick, but I had some 6.5, and that was a super easy money. I enjoyed that. And then as the playoffs gone, Drew, friend, podcast partner, super sharp NBA guy, the whale capper, him and I sat and talked NBA well before the bubble started. I'd have to look when they were put in, but he talked me into some teams, and I ended up putting Heat and Raptors futures in to win the East and to win the West. So how I want this Game 7 to go tonight.
Are you going to hedge off of that at all right here?
Well, and that's where I think if Toronto gets out to any sort of lead and I can get Boston at plus money, I'm going to take that for a little. Obviously, I already have the Heat in the finals. They're looking good. They're a tough team right now, but it would be really sweet to just, you get 2 tickets at about 8-1 to win the East, and one of them is going to win. That would be lovely. So that's the game I'll be excited about. The Clippers numbers getting pretty big here. They're looking really tough right now. That defense is starting to come together. Plus, they're deep. Like they can put out a lot of guys off the bench. Like there's some of these teams that just don't have that depth. Where you bring some guy off the bench and you watch the numbers just start to fly, where people are just, well, this is where I'm live betting because like, this lineup sucks. Or you see the star for the other team, whoever it may be, just start scoring, and there's certain lineups that just aren't working in the playoffs, and the Clippers seem to have whatever lineup they're putting out there is doing pretty well right now. They're finally starting to click. We did see some rust, I think, from both LA teams early in the playoffs, but now both the Clippers and the Lakers are looking pretty tough. Lakers are minus 6.5 tomorrow against a team that looks like they want to go to Cancun.
They're dead.
They're
totally dead.
Yeah, dead in the water. So I think both LA teams probably win, probably cover, and then gut feeling, and everybody I'm talking to says Boston probably gets it done. They're the better team. They kind of got dicked over by the refs a few different ways, double overtime game, and it might come down to makeup calls with NBA refs. It's a little chintzy sometimes.
I'd have to agree. And then when you have a guy like Tatum who can get his own shot whenever he wants, I kind of like that in a Game 7.
Yeah.
Lakers looked great last night. They brought a rookie in, which was really random, for like a 10-minute stretch, and probably like a 6-minute stretch. I'd never seen that. He was a +9, so maybe they found something there with that guy. +9, plus or minus. So I'm looking forward to that Clips Rap series, obviously, or excuse me, Clips Lakers series. Obviously, we have the Game 7 tonight. And I think the Celtics at 2.5. From what we've seen, that might be a little high, but it's within a bucket. So I would lean that Boston side for sure, just because that last game was it was a wild game, super fun, but really poorly ref. Let's call it what it is. It seems like they really wanted that Game 7 there in the bubble. So wonderful playoffs. We broke down NBA, obviously talked football, both college and pros. Last but not least, we have something. I know you're a big tennis guy. I love tennis as well. We have some finals. Today are the semifinals on the men's side, and then we have a finals on Saturday in the women's side. What are you seeing from New York for the U.S. Open, especially that women's final on Saturday?
Yeah, that's a lot of fun because unless you follow tennis, maybe people don't know the whole story there, but she was, Azarenka was kind of out of tennis, in and out, as she had a drama, like custody battles and lovers quarrels, what have you. So she kind of had some struggles after
made for
she
TV
had. It's funny, like anybody who follows tennis knows the name of her kid because it's always in the news. The battle for baby Leo, and but that's a super fun final tomorrow. Today, the men's semifinals. Carreño Busta.
What do you make that? I don't see a line.
Tomorrow?
What would you? Yeah, no, for the women's, I don't see a line. Other lines?
Oh yeah, no, for tomorrow.
Yeah,
it's roughly -170 for Naomi Osaka, who is a Japanese player. She's Haitian Japanese. She's from New York. Like she's essentially American, but Yeah, but she plays under the Japanese flag. She'd play for Japan.
And that was because they
and
gave her like
any-
sponsorship money.
I think she got a shitload of money from them early on.
Yeah.
Like that's yeah.
That's cool.
I think that's
Get
kind of
your
how
money,
that
get
worked
paid,
out. But
lady.
yeah, I'm not worried about that. But yeah, the Belarusian Victoria Azarenka. I don't know if this number's right, just because it's kind of hard to completely price her right at sometimes.
Okay.
Just she's been out for so long. Her ranking's been low. She looked great in the last tournament. She looked great now. I mean, she got it done against some big names as she's gone on. So I'd probably give the edge to Osaka, but I'm not going to pay that price. I think a lot of sharp people are probably going to jump onto Azarenka as a dog, as they've been able to do quite a few times already. And then, today, some big numbers. Like Zverev is a huge favorite against Karina Busta. It's probably right. I'm not even looking to play that one, laying the games or laying maybe some sort of prop, a 3-0. I know some people are very interested in that. As
Medvedev,
far as
Medvedev team
futures go, but yeah, Medvedev opened lower than people thought, and the team has been bet into, which is odd. I know some people with some team futures. I know some people with some Medvedev futures. I had him to win the quarter, as a lot of people did. That was very easy money. I don't think he dropped a set. Maybe one tops, but he looked great all the way through. He still looks great. I have some Medvedev. That price is too cheap. Like he's the best player left. I can get him at like minus 110 to win a semifinal here. So I'm going to be taking that, and whatever they open. I'm not sure what they'd open him. If we had some crazy upset, it would be very, very pricey to bet him against Busta. But if he goes up against Zverev, maybe minus 200. So maybe I'd look for a prop or some sort of sets or games handicap. I think team's better than Zverev. So.
Well, okay, interesting. That seems rather high to me, but you're the tennis guy.
I'll have to talk I have a couple guys who are so good at that, like just putting out guesses for the lines, and they're always so close. So I might be a touch high, but that's kind of where I would make it, or that's where I'd be worried about it being.
I love it. Well, guys, that about wraps it up. We've touched on football. We've touched on baseball, basketball. Gave you a little tennis in there for your weekend enjoyment. I don't know if there's any sports left to bet.
Who wins the golf tournament?
Brendan Steele probably. Don't worry, we'll have plenty of U.S. Open talk next week. Get your futures bets in. We got a little. If you can find a Cam Champ or a Wolfie at like anywhere around 90 to 100, just lock that one in. That would be my bet to get ready for the U.S. Open. But we'll have full U.S. Open content next week, no doubt about that. And obviously, more football, more basketball, and more baseball. So with that being said, guys, thanks everyone for tuning in to the Bettors Tribune, brought to you by Line Sniper on this Friday afternoon. And we'll talk to you soon.